Duke of Sussex has spoken candidly to James Corden about his decision to step down as a working royal.
In an interview on the Late Late Show, Prince Harry described the British press as toxic, saying living here was destroying his mental health. Well, Nick Dixon is at Buckingham Palace for us this morning. Nick, we had you at Buckingham Palace to talk about the Queen, who's been seen to be intervening on vaccines and urging people to get the vaccines. We'll talk about that shortly. This has literally broken while we've been on air. Extraordinarily strong words coming from Prince Harry in this interview.
Yeah, not for the first time, Ben, Prince Harry getting all the headlines and really not mincing his words at all. It was quite an unconventional interview for Prince Harry, certainly, and with his standards in the royal family. It was recorded with James Corden, his friend in the US, the pair of them on an open-top bus in Los Angeles, touring the city with afternoon tea. So it was, at times, relatively light-hearted, but a fair few candid comments and revelations in there. Harry referring, of course, to his life in the UK and his decision to step back from his royal duties, the impact that it's had on his mental health, which has been very challenging for him, as he said in the past, but also his thoughts on the UK press, which have been well documented, of course, over the years, but referring to it all as toxic. Yeah, so Harry really not mincing his words there with James Corden on that US TV interview. He's also talking in a more light-hearted way as well about his life in LA, saying that he's not had a chance to explore the city an awful lot because of lockdown, and also referring to birthday and Christmas presents that the Queen has sent Archie as well. But I think we can expect many more, perhaps more serious revelations to come, because of course Harry and Meghan have recorded that interview with Oprah Winfrey, which is due to be broadcast next week.
Indeed, Richard, thank you. Nick, thank you. You wonder how Oprah will be feeling about that, of course. Richard is here.
Professionally, I think she'd probably be feeling a little bit cross, maybe.
I wonder if that was part of the deal, and Richard, that they'd said, you know what, we're going to do you, but we're also going to do something with James?
Yeah, you wonder what the conversations were behind the scenes, as always with these things. I mean, Oprah took a £50 million jet to Santa Barbara to have that full and frank confessional, we're led to believe, with Meghan, with Harry, of course, the prince, as a side-serving, if you like. So James's chat is all the more extraordinary because, obviously, they're pals, and James's approach to these chats is always very natural, as well. As we said earlier in the show, you don't think, although they're on a tour bus, he's actually going to throw his subject under the bus. But along with the shade, of course, about the British press and mental health, as you heard there from Nick, James managed to draw, I think, the first royal, or member of the royal family, into the subject of the crown and what the Duke of Sussex actually thought about it. And no issue, apparently, with Damien Lewis possibly praying Prince Harry further down the line, as revealed with James. He also got the Duke of Sussex to rap as well. So our homegrown prince rapping about an LA prince.
Now, meanwhile, we're going to go back to Nick at Buckingham Palace, because, of course, we're talking about this morning because it's
Any signs of waffles being made?
Can you smell waffles? You can hear me waffling.
Not
but
so
you
far.
Can't smell waffles. Nick, you know, this is swept everything away, but I think it's fascinating that Harry is talking so openly and so freely about things, and yet yesterday the Queen saying one sentence about vaccinations made all the front pages. As people have argued that perhaps she should have done it, she shouldn't have done it. People have talked about how helpful it was, how unhelpful it was. And it really does kind of bring home how much pressure is on the royal family. Anything they say can be taken in any way, and how the Queen has been so guarded over so many years compared with this new generation.
Yeah, as you say, Kay, it's not at all what we've come to expect from the Queen over the years. It's a very unusual intervention, and effectively it was the Queen very politely and firmly giving the vaccine and the vaccination programme as a whole the sort of royal seal of approval. She was taking part in a video conversation with health leaders from the 4 different nations in the country, just talking about her experiences over the last year and experiences having the jab itself back in January, what it meant to her, and urging people, really, all of us, to get the jab, saying that as far as she can make out, it's quite harmless.
It was very quick, it didn't hurt at all. It is obviously difficult for people to, if they've never had a vaccine, because they ought to think about other people rather than themselves. Once you've had the vaccine, you have a feeling of, you know, you're protected.
Now, throughout the pandemic, of course, we have heard from the Queen and actually quite a few members of the royal family thanking frontline healthcare workers, volunteers, members of the public as well for all of their efforts over the last year during the pandemic. But so rarely do we hear the Queen getting quite so specific and really encouraging people to do something like this. So it's unusual, and we can understand the degree of controversy that it has caused.
Nick, we were talking this morning about Harry, and we were just talking to you about it there. One of the things he says, and he's very clear about, and we'll look at what he says in a moment, is how the coverage and the British press, he names them specifically, have affected his mental health. He also talks about the decision to move away from Britain, and I think references the Queen and the sort of the firm, as they call it, the whole of the institution, making a decision about his role in public life. Have a look and see what you think, Nick.
It was stepping back rather than stepping down.
Right.
You know, it was a really difficult environment, as I think a lot of people saw. We all know what the British press can be like, and it was destroying my mental health. I was like, this is toxic.
Yeah.
So I did what any husband and what any father would do, is like, I need to get my family out of here.
I mean, he then goes on to say, which we didn't show there, that whatever happens in the future, he never walked away. It sort of puts the ball in the Queen and the royal family's court in terms of that ongoing status, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen in recent weeks, particularly with one of the last statements that Harry and Meghan released, that relations between him, the couple, and the palace, perhaps even the Queen, they do seem to be a little bit strained at times. There does seem to be that tension there. And I mean, certainly from being on royal tours in the past and seeing Prince Harry and Meghan, the way that they operate as well, particularly, you know, you were talking about the press, that, I mean, to be blunt, they really don't make any you know, there's no disguising their dislike of the press. I mean, they barely sort of glance in the direction, really. It's a very different atmosphere when you're with those two. I mean, they're lovely to members of the public, of course, and I'm sure they're members of staff, but it's a very frosty relationship with the press compared to, you know, say, you know, William and Catherine. It's noticeably different. So there is a lot of tension there, potentially still within the family as well. We certainly get that impression.